Hello, hello, my brothers and sisters. This is Garrett Bake, your brother in arms, and welcome to another episode of The Tactical Businessman. Today's topic: what are you going to do when you get punched in the face? Interesting, isn't it? I want you guys to think of something. I want you to think of the last time that you actually got punched in the face. Legitimately punched in the face. What happened? Were you in junior high? Were you in high school? Were you an adult drunk at a bar? Where were you when this happened? The last time that I got hit in the face, I actually got a concussion, and I don't remember most of the afternoon. So we were training. I was working undercover at the time, and we were training on undercover rescues, i.e., what happens when an undercover goes into the house to buy drugs, to buy guns, to buy whatever, and he needs help. We got to go in and rescue him. What do? We were running through this scenario, pretending to be the bad guy, pretending to be the undercover that needed to be rescued, pretending to be the rescue team, just kind of going through the motions so that we knew what to do ahead of time in case this scenario ever happened. Well, my turn came up to play the bad guy. And what we had set up is at our academy, we had a room that had pads on the floor, like wrestling pads. So they were kind of squishy. So you got to roll around on them and not get hurt. So we had this real flimsy headgear on. I don't even know why we had it on. It was worthless. But we had this real flimsy headgear on. And the undercover was on the ground. I was on top of him. Think MMA wrestling. I was on top of him, pretending like I was delivering some strikes to him, i.e. punching him. And the undercover team was outside, or the rescue team was outside, and they were supposed to come in when they heard the rescue signal and deal with me and then remove the undercover and leave. Well, dealing with me was just supposed to be kind of a go through the motions, push me to the side, get me off of him, however, and then create space and leave. Well, there was a guy who's a really good friend of mine. I will not reveal his name because he still works there and he works undercover. Good friend of mine. And he doesn't have any middle ground. He's either completely off or 100%. Like there is no in between with this guy, which makes him great to have as a teammate. Horrible to have him on the opposite team. So they come in. He's the first guy in. He sees me on top of the good guy, of the undercover. He identifies me as the bad guy. He proceeds to pull me off the good guy, but instead of just pulling me off and creating space, he pulls me off and then proceeds to jump on top of me. So I'm like, okay, he's just going to, go through the motions. He's just pretending, whatever. No, he proceeds to give me a couple of strikes in the ribs. And then last thing I remember is seeing his elbow flying towards my head. Well, again, because he doesn't have any middle ground, he literally took his elbow and drove it right into my forehead, right above my eye. And it was a thud. Like I was seeing stars. It was not pretty. And immediately, here's the funny thing. Immediately after he did it, he's like, "Oh shit, bro, are you okay? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Again, Mr. 100% or zero. And he's looking at me with this big bug eyes. And I'm just trying to get my bearings back, but I'm really angry because I didn't want this to happen, right? Nobody wants this to happen. And then all of a sudden I feel something wet dripping down the side of my face. And I tap my fingers to it and I look at it. It's blood. So I could feel it coming good. So I get up, I run outside, and it's literally leaking. My forehead is leaking all over me, all over my hand, all over everything. And everybody's like, "Hey man, are you okay? What's going on? What happened?" And I'm just mad. I'm walking away because I know at this point I'm going to end up in a hospital. It's bleeding too much for it just to get a towel. So somebody passes me an extra shirt. I stuff it there. One of the supervisors at the time grabs me, throws me in the car, and we go down to the hospital. I don't remember any of the conversation at the hospital. I don't remember any of the conversation there. I just remember eventually making it back to my house. Well, ends up I have a concussion, but not only that, I end up having to get 7 stitches right above or right below my eyebrow. I still got this scar there. He had cut cut me open probably an inch, and it was a gash. It was just bleeding everywhere. And it was interesting because when I got back, a couple days later, all he was doing was apologizing, like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't this, I didn't that. But the truth is he was just doing what he was trained to do, right? So I want you guys to think about like how this relates to you in your life. All of us have a plan on what we're going to do in life. All of us have a plan on what we're going to do in our relationship. All of us have a plan on what we're going to do in our business until we literally get punched in the face. And we get punched in the face, and it changes everything. Everything. For those of you who have been punched in the face, you know this. Like a street fight, it's not like the movies, right? There's no cool sound effects. There's no like anything. It's literally just like a free-for-all. Even if you have training, it turns into a free-for-all. Why? Because we don't have a plan. We don't have an idea of what we're going to do. Like my plan for when he mounted me was not to do what I was trained to do, which was cover my face, right? It wasn't, because I was like, we're training. Like he's not going to do anything. No, I wasn't prepared for it. So I got punched in the face and it completely threw everything off. Like literally concussion, stitches, everything. Most of us in life get to this point where something happens to us, i.e. we get punched in the face, and we don't know what to do. We literally don't know what to do. So one of three things happens, right? Because our primitive brain takes over. We're going to fight, we're going to flight, i.e. run away, or we're going to freeze. Now, when you think about you in your life right now, which one is your go-to reaction? All of us have a go-to reaction. And you know this. There's the guys that you know or the women that you know that get super angry at everything. Start yelling, screaming when things aren't going their way. There are those who like to run away, who don't want to deal with the problem, don't want to confront the problem, just want to get away. And then there are those that freeze. And you've seen this. You look in their eyes and there's just like this emptiness. You're like rubbing your hand in front of or waving your hand in front of their face like, hey, are you there? Are you okay? Like, what's going on? So we have this natural reaction when we get punched in the face. And it is to do one of these three things: fight, flight, or freeze. What is your natural reaction? Think about the last time in your business that things didn't go your way. How did you react? Think about the last time that you had an argument with your wife. How did you react? Think about the last time that your kids pissed you off. How did you react? Think about the last time. Like I could just keep going down this list. Each of you has a pattern. Each of you has a go-to. My go-to was fight. Like anger. And you've heard me talk about stories when things have happened to me in the past. I get really angry. That was my go-to. But what happens when I got really angry? I wasn't actually able to solve the problem. Any of these three reactions, which come from our primitive brain, and I've talked about this before, our croc brain, our primitive brain that's meant to keep us alive, each of these three reactions do nothing more than try and keep us alive in some way, shape, or form, but they don't actually help us solve the problem. Fighting doesn't actually solve your problem unless you're in a fight, right? But we're talking about a literal fight now. Fighting against your wife doesn't actually solve the communication problem or whatever other problem you have. Fighting against your supervisor or your marketing guy or your clients is not going to actually solve the problem. Freezing, i.e. doing nothing, is not going to solve any of your problems. Fleeing or flight, leaving the space, the area, is not going to solve your problems either. So each of these things that our croc brain has taught us to do to survive doesn't actually long-term solve any of our problems. So what does? What does? You have to put yourself in this position. You have to put yourself under this pressure. You have to put yourself under this tension and start to work your way through it. You have to slow things down. Now, why was it that we were training undercover rescues? We weren't just talking about undercover rescues. We weren't just planning for undercover rescues. We were actually physically doing undercover rescues. Because when that moment came up, there wasn't time to plan. There wasn't time to try and figure it out. There was only time to react. When was the last time in your life that you actually took the time to plan something out? Think about this when it comes to your relationship with your wife. Like, relationships are full of conflict. That's the way they are, right? When you love somebody, there's going to be conflict. So what do you do when the conflict comes? Have you prepared ahead of time? I've talked about this prior, but I'll bring it up again. When my wife and I used to fight, I was the angry guy. I would get pissed off. It's funny, I had more than one reaction. I would get pissed off, yell and scream, because that's what I was good at. And then I would create distance. I'd create space. I would flee. I'd say, I don't want to be here anymore. Until what? Until the next fight. And guess what I would do the next fight? The same thing. And the next one, the same thing. And the next one, the same thing. And I wondered why what I really wanted, i.e. better communication to solve the problem, was never actually getting done. It's because every time I got punched in the face by her, not literal, by the way, every time I got punched in the face by my wife, I had no plan. I didn't know what to do. I hadn't trained. I hadn't practiced. I hadn't anything. So something had to change. And we had to learn, more importantly, I had to learn how to communicate under these stressful, tense situations. I knew, regardless of how she was going to come at me, regardless of how I was going to react, I knew that my end game was to find a solution to the problem. So she could call me an asshole. She could say I was worthless. She could on and on and on, and I could respond and say the same thing to her. But then I got to that point where originally I would freak out, get angry and fight more, or I would flee, i.e. leave, and I would stop. And I would say, no, I have a solution that I need, and that solution is what's going to keep me here. And so I trained myself not to flee, to be in that uncomfortable environment, till eventually we got to where we are now. Yes, we fight. We are married. We fight. But when we fight, one, with a purpose, and two, we fight with an end in sight, an end in mind, a solution. That's what we're looking for, so that this fight doesn't happen again. And it's changed everything. Ask yourself right now, what would that do for you? Like, you know there's going to be a client that's going to piss you off, or you know that your boss is going to piss you off. Like, something's going to go wrong. It's going to happen. You're going to get punched in the face. But instead of fighting like a madman, instead of fleeing, or instead of freezing, what is your reaction going to be? If you don't train this reaction in, you will not do it. You'll think about it afterwards. You'll regret it. You might think about it beforehand. But if you don't train it, it's not actually going to happen. So I'm challenging you, each and every one of you. It's 2019. You want to start a new pattern? Here's a new pattern for you. Train yourself to react differently when you get punched in the face. Train yourself through reps, through practice, to do something about it. Instead of falling back on your primitive brain, instead of falling back in survival mode. Because survival mode is not actually going to get you what you want out of life. All right, that is it for today. Thanks for listening in. As always, I appreciate you for being here. I want you to share this message with those that you know that could use it, because that's what this is all about, is helping each other get more out of life. All right, as always, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one.